Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm joined by Neil Mellor today. Come down to West Ham in 2003-2004 season, played a few games, scored a couple of goals as well. So we're going to take a little look and discuss his time at West Ham with a few interesting stories coming up, including how he joined the Hammers in the first place. But before we get on to that, how are you doing, Neil?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It was a brief spell at West Ham, but certainly one that I look back on and enjoyed.
Good man. Well, let's start from the very start. Loan moved, come down from Liverpool, 20 years old. How did the whole thing come about?
Well, I was actually doing quite well at Liverpool at the time. I'd scored a lot of goals in the reserves. I had a decent pre-season. I just scored 2 goals for Liverpool away at Aberdeen, and I was thinking, I'm going to be part of things this season. Okay, maybe not starting because we had Michael Owen and Emil Heskey, the England centre forwards, but I thought I'm going to be part of the squad. And the manager after that game said to me, Gerard Houllier, I want you to go out on loan. Now you've got a couple of days to decide. Do you want to go to West Ham or do you want to go to Sunderland? And I'll be honest, I was quite shocked. I was disappointed to hear that. I was thinking, okay, obviously I'm not part of the plans this season, but I've got to decide which club it was I wanted to go to, either West Ham or Sunderland. I think both had just been relegated to the Championship at that point.
Yeah, the deal, was it sort of discussed before in an airport, do you think? The sort of the potential of losing you?
So the rumor goes. Now I don't know, but we were at I don't know if it was Gatwick or Heathrow. We were down there in one of the London airports because we were flying over to Thailand to play in pre-season, Liverpool, and at the airport at exactly the same time was West Ham. So I don't know where they were going on pre-season as well. And I know that obviously the managers would have got together and had a chat. We obviously saw the West Ham boys in all their trackies. They saw us in all our trackies, wandering about the airport, and maybe that was how it first did get discussed. The manager at that time was Glenn Roeder of West Ham. He was back in the hot seat after missing the back end of last season with his illness.
So the managers had a conversation there and then. The next thing you know is West Ham want to take you on loan. What made you choose West Ham? Who else was in for you?
It was a choice between Sunderland and West Ham. And Sunderland, another big football club, they had Mick McCarthy as the manager. West Ham, a huge football club. Glenn Roeder was in charge, and what swayed it for me was because obviously 2 huge football clubs was the managers. So Glenn Roeder said, "I want you to come to West Ham, and I want you to develop as a player." Whereas at Sunderland, it was a case of, "We want to sign you," and that was all it was. So I had the decision. I thought, you know what, I fancy West Ham. It was down there in London. Obviously the fans there at Upton Park. I was quite excited by that. But then the difficult decision for me was I had to tell Sunderland that I didn't want to sign for them. Now, back then, my agent and the agent I had throughout my career was the PFA, and the advice from my dad, who used to be a professional football player, was you've got to ring Mick McCarthy and tell him you don't want to sign him. Now, football players, no way would tell a manager these days, I'm not going to sign for you. They would get their agent, you sort it out. I had to write down on a piece of paper, word for word, what I was going to tell Mick McCarthy, why I wasn't going to sign for him at Sunderland. The phone call lasted 17 seconds. I said to Mick McCarthy, I read everything out, saying, listen, thanks very much for wanting to sign me. I wish you all the very best, but I'm going to sign for West Ham. I'm not even sure he spoke, but that was it. So it was a tough phone call, but one I had to make. And then obviously I accepted the offer from West Ham to go there on loan for the season.
A couple of days later, you made your debut for us. A very short turnaround. You sort of accept to come to West Ham, and before you know it, you're playing against Preston.
Yeah, I think the deal was done Thursday night for West Ham, and Glenn Roeder said there's no point in coming down Thursday because we're coming back up north straight away to not far from where I lived. We're playing Preston away, first game of the season. So he said, I'll tell you what, we'll meet you. And I said, okay, fine, we'll wherever. And they ended up picking me up at a service station, Knutsford Services, on the way. So I pile on the team bus. They're all in the West Ham trackies. I'm piling on him just my normal gear because obviously I've not got any kind of West Ham gear at that point. I get on the bus. I'm thinking, where am I going to sit? Little JD, Jermaine Defoe said, come and sit next to me. Sat next to him. I'm on the bus for about half an hour. We pull up at Blackburn Training Ground, which is where we trained before the game against Preston the next day. So I'm just getting to know the lads, literally meeting them for the very first time. We have a little warm up. Then Glenn Roeder names the team the next day, and I'm in the starting lineup. Thinking, I mean, David Conley was there at the time. I think he played a lot of the pre-season games, and he was thinking, what's going on here? I've only just picked this lad up from the service station. He's in the starting lineup straight away. So it wasn't ideal, the start for me, just getting to know the lads, and I was straight into the starting lineup for that game against Preston.
As a lone player, though, you're coming down, you must have some doubts over how much game time you're going to get, especially like when you say we've got Defoe there, Conley there as well, and we're later to add to the squad. But did that sort of reassure you? You know, you're straight in, you've had half a training session, you're starting, you're thinking, I'm in this manager's plans here. I'm going to have a good spell at West Ham this season.
I knew I was in his plans. I knew I was going there to develop. I wasn't going there saying I'm going to start every game. That was never my intention. My intention was, right, I'm going to go there, massive club like West Ham. There's some very good players, Jermaine Defoe, Christian Daly, Steve Lomas, a lot of experienced players, Don Hutchinson, David James. That was there. I thought, right, okay, I'm around some senior players there, get a bit of game time, score a few goals, try and learn and develop, and then go back a better player to Liverpool. So that was the aim. I wasn't going there demanding to play every game, which I think certain loan moves maybe have changed a little bit in that sense. So I knew what my remit was going there. Glenn Road had made it perfectly clear. I was surprised that I was starting that first game, and I think probably a lot of the West Ham fans and even the players in the dressing room were surprised when I was named in that starting lineup.
When you joined, obviously, like you said, we suffered a relegation from the Premier League just before that. What was the morale like at West Ham? I mean, is it difficult to go into a club that's just gone down? You know, while some players are leaving, some are trying to leave. You're rebuilding the squad, but also, you know, staff members have lost their jobs and stuff. What was the morale like at the club?
Yeah, well, I think for any football club who gets relegated, whatever, I think there's a period of uncertainty, and that was the case when I went there at West Ham. I was a new player arriving. Don't forget that they'd been in the Premier League. They'd had all these stars. I think Nketiah had left. I think Nketiah had left. Obviously, Glenn Johnson had just left. There were some big names that had just left. So the turnaround from the players leaving, and even some players in that dressing room that were thinking they were leaving, but didn't quite leave in that transfer at that transfer time. So it's not an ideal time for any player to come in thinking, right, who's staying, who's not staying, and am I going to be part of what team am I going to be part of this season?
Was there any big differences between Liverpool and West Ham when you first rocked up? Obviously, you're still going to a big club at West Ham, but you were sort of going away from one of the biggest clubs in world football.
I think the biggest thing was, you know, maybe the expectation. I'd come through the youth ranks at Liverpool. I'd earned the reputation of being a goal scorer, and earned the trust and respect of the first team players. You know, the likes of Steven Gerrard, Jamie Carragher at Liverpool. But now I'm going down to West Ham. I've got to start again. I've got to show the West Ham players, listen, I'm a good young player, and I had to earn that respect on the training ground by working hard and starting again. So I had no reputation at West Ham. I had to earn that reputation, and my stats weren't great. Let's be honest. You know, I only scored a couple of goals at West Ham. I'd love to have scored a few more goals. I think it wasn't ideal, the fact that I had 3 managers at West Ham. The manager who took me there didn't last longer than 2 or 3 games, which was a huge blow to me, because all of a sudden, me thinking I'm going there to play a bit of game time, but also develop as a player, that had completely gone out of the window. And yet I did enjoy probably the time under Trevor Brooking, because I was involved all the time for his games.
Yeah, what was it like with Glenn? Because, you know, like you said, 3rd game in the season, away to Rotherham, got beat. And obviously there's a lot of sort of stories about that. You got changed in team bus before the game, and obviously Rhoda got pretty much sat there and then. And what do you remember about that day in game?
Didn't get changed on the team bus. We got changed in the hotel. That's
a myth.
We got changed in the hotel. I think it was like a Marriott or a Mercure in Sheffield. And yeah, we went in for the team meeting, and all the kit was there on the chair, so we got changed. Got on the bus. Obviously, everyone was thinking this is a bit unusual, but you just do what you're told. Get to the ground. Obviously, Millmoor, Rotherham's old ground. It was a small ground. The changing room was small. I think it was in two sections, the changing room, if I remember correctly. But that's what it was. You know, Rotherham had done really well to get themselves there, a decent team. And the game wasn't going our way. I remember sitting on the bench with Michael Carrick, actually, at the time, 1-0 down. And the manager, Glenn Roeder, throws me on, thinking, right, okay, going to get an equaliser, maybe score, maybe get a winner or something like that. And my only contribution of the game was to play a through ball. Jermaine Defoe clean through. Now, 9 times out of 10, you think he scores. but for whatever reason, JD missed that chance. Didn't get the equalising goal. We did lose the game 1-0. And it was a horrible, horrible place to be, that changing room afterwards. There was a lot of dissatisfaction, a lot of frustration, a lot of anger. And a few of the senior players didn't hold back with the manager, Glenn Roeder, which as a young player was a really, really new experience for me to see.
Hey, what's it like for a 20-year-old going on loan? Not necessarily as a footballer, but obviously you're going from Liverpool to London, where, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't really know anyone. You've got to find a new place to stay. I assume the club put you somewhere. Who was your lodger, if you like? Who were you staying with?
I was in a hotel for about 6-8 weeks, which is not ideal, is it? And then eventually found a flat. And I ended up sharing with another lad on loan from Leeds United, Matt Kilgallen, centre half. He came down as well. He was only 19 at the time. So me and him shared that. And the big difference was I'd gone from a young player still living at home with my mum and dad to now living in a flat with this lad. He didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to cook. It was an absolute nightmare. So you think that was a bit of a wake-up call. We probably didn't look after ourselves as well as we should have done, as well as we could have done. You know, I'll be honest and admit that. I think players nowadays may be better educated in that sense and need to be. You know, if they are to go out alone and experience living on their own, cooking for themselves, because I didn't know how to cook. So that was the toughest challenge, I think, for me and Killer, living together. The food, the diet wasn't great. We were eating well at the training ground, but then not so great out of it.
Sir Trev come in, as you mentioned. What was it like, sort of playing under him? I mean, it went well. You know, 4 wins on the bounce when he first come in as well. What was it like, just sort of sitting there? I mean, even if you didn't know about West Ham, you knew about Sir Trev.
Sir Trev, ledge, loved him, absolutely loved him. I'll always remember his first talk to us. He sat us down in the gym at the training ground, and we're all sat there thinking, okay, what's going on? Maybe thinking he might take it on full time. And he said, lads, I'll be honest with you, I'm here to take it temporary. So let's enjoy the time we have together. I don't know how long that will be. The board are looking for a new manager at the moment. So whilst I'm in charge, let's just enjoy it. And I'm sat there thinking, obviously, we all know who Sir Trevor Brooking was. He a legend of the game, and he was that inspiring figure. So yes, I'd lost Glenn Roeder, and I was disappointed by that. But then Sir Trev came, and I was buzzing. Yeah, I was back buzzing again. Little spring in my step, and to be fair, he played me a lot of games. You know, he kept me involved, and I did enjoy my time under him. He played me, Defoe, and Connolly up front at times together. And like you said, we had a good run. You know, we're in and around the playoffs pretty much all that time before eventually Alan Pardew was the man brought in.
Do you start to hope that he was going to stay on? Because I know he said when he first joined, you know, I'm not taking it, but, you know, you're winning, you're in the team, obviously. From I guess there's 2 angles here. From a West Ham standpoint, you think, well, you're probably the man for us, but also from a Neil Mellor standpoint, you're thinking, hang on, I'm playing games under you, I'm learning a little bit. Can you please stay as well for my benefit?
Yeah, I wanted him to stay, but he never changed on what he said that first day to us. He said, listen, I'm temporary. I do not want it long term. So we will find the right person for the job. And it was quite a while. You know, sometimes the caretakers, managers don't last as long as that. But Sir Trev had quite a few games in charge, and it was a good little run. But eventually it was Pardew who came in. I think Pardew was manager of Reading, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
And then we managed to get him over. And I get it. You know, for me as a lone player, a new manager coming in, he inherits players and they want their own players. And it's as simple as that. So it was, I didn't know it at the time because I just presumed I would be involved, but I very quickly became aware that Pardew wanted his own players in.
You made your first start prior to Pardew coming in. First start Upton Park, your first full debut Upton Park. You obviously come off the bench against Sheffield United, but your first full game against Bradford. What do you remember about that game? Is it special walking out there with the bubbles and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, playing at Upton Park was a great experience. I thought it was a brilliant atmosphere. The bubbles, like you say, loved it. Loved that experience. I mean, I was used to Anfield, and again, that creates a great atmosphere. And Upton Park was the same for me. When I was there as a player, the home fans are really behind you. What I would say is I remember that game. My brother came down actually to watch it, which was great. Travelled all the way down because I think it was an evening game, that one against Bradford. And I remember starting the game. I was sitting there at halftime. It was 0-0. We battered Bradford first half, but we just couldn't score. And the West Ham fans let us know they were disappointed. They booed us off the pitch. And I was sat in the dressing room thinking, we've just been booed off. We've played well there. We've actually played well there. And the lads were looking around at each other saying, lads, we've got to score. We've got to score. They will not be happy until we get this goal and beat them. The expectancy was, listen, we should be battering Bradford, but it wasn't as easy as perhaps it did sound. Eventually, JD scored a wonder goal second half, and that was the winning goal. And the fans went home satisfied. I wouldn't say delighted, but satisfied with getting the 3 points. But that was a realization for me. This is the expectancy. We expect to be winning games in this league. We expect to be challenging to get promoted, and the fans let us know at halftime in that game.
You got a couple of goals for West Ham coming in the same game, funnily enough, against Crystal Palace. Probably the most memorable game at West Ham, I guess.
Yeah, it was a long time coming to get those goals. I went there thinking I'd score a lot more goals than I did. They were the only goals I scored in a West Ham shirt, unfortunately. It was at home at Upton Park, one at either end, which was nice. One was a tap-in, and then one was a header as well at the far post. Second and third goal, it was a comfortable victory against Crystal Palace. It was a good victory. It was nice to get those goals, and it felt great.
I better say, until you score those goals, do you feel a little bit more pressure every time as a striker? You think, bloody hell, I've still not got a goal here, still not got a goal. Is it relief to score them?
Relief. I was fuming. I was thinking, how am I not scoring? I've never experienced this at all. I was known as a goal scorer. The West Ham fans were thinking, who's this kid we brought from Liverpool? He's not scoring goals. And eventually I did score the goals in that only game. So it was relief more than anything. And I actually looked back and I was thinking, the manager brought me off in that game. I only lasted, I think, 80 minutes. I'm thinking, you can't bring a centre forward off on a hat trick, especially one that's been desperate to score goals. But I was brought off with in the last 10 minutes or so of that game. So I never got to score a hat trick. I did get to get a couple of goals for West Ham. I did enjoy that. I would love to have scored more goals. But what was interesting was that result against Palace. We ended up losing eventually to Palace in the playoff final that year. Yeah. So maybe Pardew should have played me in that game, and maybe it might be a different story.
You obviously had a couple of injury spells at West Ham, coming at probably the wrong time for you as well. Is it difficult as a player on loan where you're injured? It's not just the fact that you're out the team, it's hindering your development, you're away from your family and whatnot. How difficult is it, and probably underestimated, I guess, by fans looking from the outside, that say, oh, he's injured, we'll just talk about the players that are playing. Especially when you're 20 years old. I can't imagine that was too easy for you.
Yeah, the only injury I got at West Ham was it was an ankle injury, and what it was Alan Pardew came in and he asked me to play in a reserve team game. It was at Upton Park. I'm sure it was against Wimbledon, and we ended up signing a few of the Wimbledon lads after the game. But yeah, so very early on in the game, I had a shot, and the defender caught me. Now back then, the blade stud. Remember the blade stud? We just started to come out on the boots, and what had happened was the blade had just completely cut open my ankle, and it was an open wound. It was horrible. It was actually on my 21st birthday, so it's something I'll never forget. I've got a twin sister. I invited her down for the game. I invited her down to take a shopping to Harrods the next day. I was going to treat my twin sister, but I was in hospital that night, trying to get it sewed up, and obviously resting the next day. But that injury, even though it was only a kick, it took a month before the wound would close. It was that big. And I remember Pardew kicking off to maybe the bootmakers or whoever saying, it's not right, that, because it was a really nasty injury that I sustained. I think I needed seaweed or something to try and close the wound eventually. And until the wound was closed, I wasn't allowed to play. So that was a big frustration for me. New manager coming in and wanting to impress him. And that was a real setback. And like I said, the manager wants his own players and he's got to move on. He can't be waiting for me. So that it wasn't ideal timing. And it was a setback.
Yeah, you had a brief reinduction to the first team, and then you went back to Liverpool. And Pardew said it was your decision. What made you decide to head back up north and away from West Ham?
Easy. I wasn't playing. Wasn't involved. Wasn't playing. I wasn't in matchday squads. And it was a case of he was asking me to play reserve team games. West Ham played the reserve games at Dagenham at that time. And I was like, come on, I need to go back. I can play reserve team football at Liverpool. If I'm not part of your plans, then let me go back. And to be fair to Pardew, he was great. He was really good to me. I wasn't part of his plans, and he said, "Fine, you can go." But he could have made it a lot more difficult than he did. And okay, disappointed I wasn't in his plans, but he was good enough to say, "Okay, go back home," and it didn't work out for you here. And in all fairness to Pardew, we never burnt our bridges together. I didn't play many games for him. I'm not even sure I started a game for Alan Pardew, to be honest. And I did have that embarrassment of coming on in a game and getting subbed in the same game, which I'll talk about shortly. But Pardew, a year later, I went back to Liverpool and I scored quite a memorable goal for Liverpool against Arsenal. And Alan Pardew had the decency to write a handwritten letter to me to congratulate me. And for that, I'll always be grateful. You know, he didn't have to do that. And I've seen him since. I've thanked him for that. So it was quite nice that, okay, he didn't want to play me and I wasn't his sort of player that he wanted to, but he still had the decency to say, I'm made up to see that you're still doing all right in your career. So that was something I was grateful for. But he did bring me on and bring me off in a game, which no player ever wants to do. It was Cardiff away. It was 0-0. He was happy with a point. He brought Anton Ferdinand on for me with 10 minutes to go. I'm thinking, keep me on the pitch. He did bring me on after 10 minutes. So I think, what did I play? 70 minutes in the game, which obviously was quite a long period. But no player ever wants to experience that. And I did for West Ham. By the way, when I got brought off the bench, all the players were laughing at me. They were laughing at me because it's one of those things no player wants to experience.
Live on telly as well, that game, just to make it worse.
It was. And I think I had a skinner at the time as well. It was a terrible image that I had because after I'd scored the goals for West Ham, I said, right, I'm going to get my head shaved off now. Stupid idea. I looked like a right wally. And yeah, so live on Sky, subbed on, subbed off. And it wasn't a good image for me, that one.
Oh, back to Liverpool you went. Really did go back to Liverpool, though. 10 goals in 4 reserve games for them towards the end of that season. Did you think you'd almost had a point to prove when you returned to Liverpool to say, to some extent, say, well, I'm going to show you made a mistake, not play me more often?
No. I was disappointed it didn't work out. You know, I've gone to West Ham. I've experienced a huge football club down there. I'd love to have scored more goals. The managerial change didn't work for me, but I felt as though I grew up as a person and as a player. You know, having to live on my own was something I'd never experienced before. Being in a senior dressing room, every single game around the players, seeing what the standards were like. There were some really experienced players in there, some top international players. So it was a really good learning experience. And I did go back a better player. Whilst on the pitch, I didn't show it for West Ham. I did go back a better player. And those games at the end of the season for Liverpool in the reserves, I think showed that, yeah, I'd improved.
During the season, obviously you come to West Ham to get game time developed. But during that season at Liverpool, funnily enough, they had a bit of a striker shortage. Were you ever thinking, oh, if I was still there, I might have had a chance in the first team, or were you able to push that to one side enough?
Just, yeah, I mean, the deal I'd signed at West Ham was a year loan, so I knew that couldn't be broken at any point. So it was a case of, and something I do believe in for any player going out on loan, you've got to commit yourself to that football club, understand what that football club's about, the people, the fans, the location, and that was what I did at West Ham. Obviously, I've moved there. I've focused on what West Ham was all about, and to be honest, it was more of a disconnect away from Liverpool. So I knew I couldn't influence things at Liverpool. Obviously, wanted them to do well, but it was a case of being focused for West Ham the time I was there.
You obviously had your old man in your ear throughout your career and whatnot. What did he make of your time at West Ham? Was he ever giving you advice during your stay there? And what was the advice your old man was giving you?
Not good enough. He was quite honest. Yeah, he wouldn't beat about the bush. You know, at the end of the day, I was a centre forward. I've gone there and I've scored 2 goals. Those numbers are not good enough. And he would be quite honest with me. Got to do more. And he was always a very, very supportive figure for me, but honest as well. Telling me, listen, because he played at the top level, played for Man City at the top level and Norwich, and so it was a case of him saying, listen, if you want to get back to the top level, if you want to have a career in the game, you've got to do more. So he was really honest, and I needed that as well.
Right, let's talk about a few big questions then. A little bit of fun as well to end the interview. Well, a bit of a sort of half negative question. First of all, any regrets? Any regrets or things that you wished happened? Anything you changed while you were at West Ham?
Any regrets? God, I wish we'd have scored more goals. No, I mean, I can't change what happened. I remember Glenn Roeder saying to me, I want to give you number 10. That's the shirt I want to give you. Now, as we know in West Ham history, that is a very famous shirt number for a lot of top players in the past. And I was thinking, I don't fancy that pressure. So I turned down the chance to wear number 10. And I said, now give me a different number. They gave me 14. And I was like, that's a rubbish number. I'm not wearing 14. I said, can I have 33? Because that was the number I was at Liverpool. So that was why I had 33. So maybe I should have took number 10 and gone, absolutely, let's deal with that pressure and wear the number 10. And maybe I would have scored more goals.
That would have been tough, especially considering Nketiah literally just left a month or two before your arrival. That would have been big shoes to go straight into, to be fair. Exactly. But I guess that just shows what a faith Roeder had in you prior to your arrival as well. He obviously saw you as a bit of a mainstay for his team and plans for the remainder of the season. Was there anyone at the club that really helped your development, whether it's on the pitch or off the pitch, whether it's a player or a coach? Is there anyone that you look back at West Ham and think that guy helped me the most or a lot at West Ham?
I think Sir Trev. You know, I'm grateful for how he handled me. He put his arm around my shoulder. He was honest. he was great. I really enjoyed my time with Sir Trev, and that was my happiest time, if I'm being honest, at West Ham. So grateful for him. Lads in the dressing room. There's some senior players. A good bunch of lads. I mean, the likes of Mickey Carrick, little Jermaine Defoe, Bywater, David James, Fordy as well, third choice goalkeeper, went on to play for Ireland. He was a good lad as well. Lived with David Noble, didn't quite make it at West Ham, but went on to have a career for himself as well in the game. Matty Etherington, Lomas, Hutch. I mean, just good lads in that dressing room, and I did really enjoy it. So I think where I learned and developed was being around seasoned players every single game, thinking, yeah, I'm having this. I want a little bit more of this.
Not at West Ham, but one player that was really influential in your career, I want to bring up, because obviously the West Ham channel, people watching this who perhaps don't know, one of the coaches you had was Alan Irvine throughout your career. What was he like as a coach?
The best I've had, if I'm being honest.
What makes him the best? What makes him the best?
Makes him the best. He makes driving into training enjoyable. Now, for a football fan, you're thinking, what do you mean you don't enjoy going to training? I'm telling you, when I'm in the team, when I'm not in the team, I couldn't wait to train, because I knew his sessions would be good. I knew I'd be learning, and I knew I'd be improving. Now, it sounds quite simple to say that. I've worked with a lot of coaches, and a lot of players have, and you don't get that same enjoyment, that same feeling of I'm improving, I'm learning every single day under Alan Irvine. Loved it when he was at Preston with him. He got us into the playoffs, which was great, the Championship playoffs. I thought he was harshly sacked there. He went to West Ham in the Premier League. West Brom in the Premier League. Never in the relegation zone, yet got sacked. Norwich did a good job. Sheffield Wednesday, we were in and around the playoffs. Again, he got sacked. I loved working with Alan Irvine. So I know he's been down there at West Ham, and I'm sure he's had a big influence as a coach. And he had it briefly, didn't he, as an interim for a couple of games at West Ham as well. Brilliant coach. Top coach, yeah.
Good man. I like to hear that. That's stuff I like to hear when you do these interviews, because often we all know you scored 2 goals against Crystal Palace. We've all heard the myth about getting changed on the bus before the Rotherham game and stuff, but that stuff you don't hear very often. So it's good to hear that. Who was the best player, whether it's on the pitch or on the training ground? Who was the best players at West Ham while you were there?
We had some good players. Take your pick: Michael Carrick or Jermaine Defoe. I mean, both had unbelievable careers, haven't they? But both were there at West Ham at that time, and you could see just how good they were. So, do you know what? I'll go with JD, because he was a goal scorer, wasn't he? He scored more goals than Mickey Carrick.
Yeah, the most awkward question of the video. I was hoping you'd mention Defoe, because I know you had a decent partnership with him and relationship with him as well. Obviously, during that season, he got sent off 3 times, which is something that's probably tarnished his time at West Ham among West Ham fans. What was it like for you as a player? I mean, are you thinking, happy days, I get in the team, I've got more chance of getting in the team here because he's suspended? Or are you thinking, what's going on here? Why are you getting sent off? And obviously trying to force a move and stuff. What was your thoughts on it?
I can't even remember him getting sent off.
Yeah, I mean, it must be different for you because you obviously know him personally as well. So I think our perception of players, we're looking from the outside, you're looking from the inside. So I just wondered what you thought of it as a player. That's all.
What I would say is, from the moment I arrived to the moment I left, there was not a day without speculation little Jermaine Defoe was leaving. It was speculation all the time. And obviously he wanted to play in the Premier League. And I don't think there was not speaking out of turn in saying that. He was great with me. Yeah, I think he knew he was going to have a decent career at scoring goals at the top level, and he was a really, really good character to have about the place. I think he might have wanted his move, but he still got on with things at West Ham, still scored goals, still put himself about, still trained very, very well every day, wanted to show how good he was.
Any surprises, player-wise, when you turned up at West Ham? You obviously had a few players there that were experienced, maybe towards the latter end of their career, like Rob Lee is a prime example. Is there anyone that you walked in, saw play football, and thought, bloody hell, this guy's a lot better than I thought he was?
Do you know what? I remember looking around the dressing room thinking, goodness me, we've got some good players there. Like you say, Rob Lee, Steve Lomas, Hutchinson, Tommy Repka. I remember thinking, I'm not sure I want to look at you because I don't want to get on the wrong side of you.
About to say, did he strike fear into you in the changing room as much as us out of the changing room?
Yeah. I remember just before Christmas, we used to have the car cleaners that used to come to the training ground. One of the car cleaners had crashed his car into the wall, and you're thinking, if there's one player you do not want to cause any damage to the car, it's Tommy Repka. So yeah, that didn't go down too well. He was, but he was soft as well in terms of stay on the right side of him. I was on the right side of him. Didn't mess about with him. On the right side of him. So saw that softness to him. Did not want to get on the wrong side of Tommy Repka. But yeah, there was not really in terms of did anyone surprise me how good they were. I think it was the first chance I got to see Jermaine Defoe, and I was thinking, okay, yeah, he is the real deal because I've seen the goals he'd scored, and then to see him in training as well was confirmation of that.
Did you have that with Carrick as well? I mean, even when as West Ham fans, he just oozed class from day one. You know, he's pinging passes left, right, and centre. If you made a run and he was 60 yards away, he'd be able to ping over the top of the defence and land it on your feet, basically.
He was class. Maybe he didn't quite get the game time. Like I say, he was on the bench at Rotherham with me. Now look at the career Mickey Carrick's gone on and had a superb football player and a top lad off the pitch as well. At that time, now I haven't seen a great deal of him since he left, obviously Spurs and Manchester United after West Ham, but he was a top guy who he wasn't big-headed. He was an unbelievable football player, but he was just a nice lad to have about in that dressing room and a classy player.
Who was the gobbiest one in the dressing room? Who was you could call it leadership or you could call it gobbiest or the joker of the pack? Give us an insight into the dressing room, the characters of that team, if you like.
Jermaine Defoe wasn't quiet. He was a very lively lad to have out in that dressing room. He was lively. Hutch was a big character. Don Hutchinson, I would say he was one of the bigger characters. But then you've got some of the more serious leaders like your Lomas, like your Christian Dailies, people like that. Big Ian Pearce, what a good character he was in the dressing room as well. Always up for a laugh, but then knew where to draw the line as well. I'd probably say the biggest character in that dressing room was Don Hutchinson.
Good man. Anyway, time at West Ham, did you enjoy it? You glad you went?
Yeah, enjoyed it. Yeah, absolutely. Wanted, would love to have done more, but grateful to have got that opportunity to have played at West Ham. And of course, had the memories of the Crystal Palace game and the time under Trevor Brooking, which I'll always be grateful for.
Good man, Neil. Thank you very much. I massively appreciate you joining us and having a chit chat with us about your time at West Ham. If you guys at home have enjoyed this video, drop a like on it, subscribe if you're new to the channel. One thing we're going to be doing this year in 2022, any ad revenue we get from the videos that we do interviews with, whether it's an ex-player or an ex-staff member or a celebrity West Ham fan, we're going to be popping half the revenue to one side. And at the end of the year, we're going to be giving it to the Iron Sporting food banks as well. Hopefully help John and the team out over at the food banks. And I don't mind saying, when I messaged some ex-players and that, Neil replied to me straight away, said we'd love to be involved and we'd love to help out and try and raise a bit of cash for the food bank. And I know he does stuff with the food bank away from West Ham as well. He'll hate me mentioning this, Neil, I think, but I know that he does help out the food bank as well. So, Neil, thank you very much for that as well. And hope you enjoy the interview. We'll catch you in a bit.